Nothing is quite as painful as vibe coding to your heart's content only to be left with a dud of a UI. And so today we are going to solve that with Gemini 3 Pro. Most people approach app building kind of backwards. They build a bunch of complicated functionality and then turn to their app, which looks like poo. But today we're going to put an end to that by thinking through our designs before we build complex business logic and spend an unfortunate amount of time configuring authentication and APIs and all of that other stuff. So I'm going to show you all of the prompts in order so that you can actually replicate this process for yourself. And of course, all of the prompts are available for free in the description below. So that being said, let's get into it. Now, as we're looking at this app, it looks pretty nice. One of the core tenets of this app that I'm trying to build is that it needs to feel very clear and it needs to feel very uncluttered. And so I think we've been able to put a really solid amount of information into this app while still maintaining something that feels very simple and very clear. So I'm going to show you the exact system that we went through to get to this point. Now, the only thing that you really need to get started with this is a very basic React app. So let me show you how we can get started with that. So all we need to do is come down into our terminal and type npx create react app at latest, and then give your new project a name. So we hit enter. Now this is going to go through and it's going to actually download a vanilla React app into our project. Now the biggest thing people get wrong when they're trying to design a UI or a style guide is that they tend to treat it as an afterthought. And so what we want to do is we want to actually first start by generating a list of all of the features that are going to be in our app, because our design and the user experience needs to be linked to what it is that we're actually building. So we're going to start off with this product management prompt that basically is generating us a PRD in a very specific format. And the only thing we are passing in is what our concept is for this app. And so we're going to go through, we're going to paste that in, and we are going to let it roll. So this is the type of output that we get from the other side. We get an executive summary highlighting like what is it exactly that we are building. And then we get this list of our core features. So in this app, we have this way to dump our notes. We have this reflection engine that is meant to synthesize the notes. And then we have this ability to actually export out those reflections that we make. So from this, we have a pretty concrete idea of what we're going to build for our MVP, which is going to enable us to think about how exactly we want to design it. But a lot of this information that we have in here, like the validation plan and the non-functional requirements, that information isn't really needed. So this brings us to our second step, extracting these features. Now, context is everything. And so we want to parse out anything from that PRD that doesn't directly affect our designs. And so basically what we're telling it in this format section is the exact format or structure that we want its response. So we want all of the features, the user stories for those features, and any core UX considerations for those features. Now we also provide some general UX guidelines that I like to apply to every project. And again, this is going to be available below if you want it. And then from there, we are basically going to pass in the context that we had from that previous step. So all the different screens, how they're meant to function, we are going to pass that in to this feature list. So we're just going to copy this and we are going to go paste it into our next step. Now, by the way, if you want an in-depth video where we take that and we get even more UX specifics out of it, I have an entire training inside of the free group in the description below where I show you how we can refine and refine and refine to get a really clear user experience before we move to the next step, but that is optional for you. So we're popping back into Gemini now, and I've just copy pasted that prompt that we had, and we are going to let it go. So now what we're getting out the other side from this prompt is a refined list of all of our core features and the core UX considerations involved in those features. How are they meant to function when people interact with them? What do the error states look like? All of that type of stuff is now outlined in detail for us. So now that we have this nice list of features, we can actually move through and we can start to build out our design system. So there's really two approaches here. Approach number one is you can just do it raw. So if you have ideas about how you want everything to be styled already, you can try and actually codify that system. But what I like to do is go into a tool like Mobbin and find app screens or app inspiration that you actually really like. So for example, in this case, I actually really like the aesthetic of Claude. And so what I can do is I can come through here and I can start downloading some of these screens out of the tool. And in the next stage, I can provide this as context when we go to actually build out our UI system. And so what we're doing in this step, which is a two-parter, is that we're telling it what it's intended to do. So it's meant to build us our UIs. And then we're saying that we have this design system inspiration. So you don't need to take this thing too literally, but this should serve as like a directional insight into what the user wants. And so what we are doing is we're passing in, again, some of our aesthetics that we know we want. What are some of our principles? And then we are passing in our actual app overview so that it has an understanding of like what this is meant to be and what we want it to really think through. So in this case, we are asking it to build out a style guide, everything from our colors, fonts, typography, how buttons should be styled, how cards should be styled, all of that type of stuff. And then we're giving a very specific format example that we want out the other side. And the reason we're doing this is it's going to make it really easy to turn into a token-based design system that we can just pass into our app in a second. And so now we can see what we're getting out the other side is exactly that. Details of our color palettes, again, based on, in this case, it was just Claude, but you can, mix and match and provide different UIs. And so it's pulling in that primary like red clay color that it has, the ink black that it has. And again, it's moving through everything and it's building out our design system. So what we're going to do from here is copy this entire thing, go into a new chat, and then we're going to paste in this new prompt. And so this new prompt is very similar, except what we're doing here is we're again passing in that app overview. We're giving it a similar task, but now what we're saying is I want you to go feature by feature and then screen by screen and state by state. So for example, if we have like a dashboard screen, for example, in our app, there's a lot of different states that could exist in. It could have no data, it could have erroring data, it could have a little bit of data, it could have a ton of data. We need to think through how we want to design each of those individual views inside of the app. And so we're basically telling it that for every feature I'm about to pass you, you need to brainstorm this entire list. Now, depending on if you're using this in the same chat or not, we can tell it, hey, use the last output, or we can just paste in that feature list that we have. And then the next thing that we're doing is we are pasting in that entire style guide that we just got, like with the clay color, the primary ink, everything we just got from the last step, we are pasting in so that it has our style guide, it has all of our features, it has all the different states of those features, it knows how they're meant to function. And so now it's going to go build us an actual system that we can use to start building those screens. But this thing has run through, what we've basically done is we've gone for each major feature in our app and each screen, and we've built out a design for all of the states it could exist in. So if this was the 0 state for a first launch, what are all of the different background colors being used? What is the typography? How are we actually signaling to users what they can do and what they should be doing, and what are any other important UI elements and how are they meant to actually be designed? And so we're going through, again, screen by screen and outlining all of this. And so the last stage of this process and what we're going to do from here is we're going to go screen by screen and we are going to paste it into this next prompt and actually build our app from that. Here's what that final prompt looks like. We are telling it, again, some design principles to make sure it stays on track. We're telling it that this is a simulated experience. So we're not actually building the functionality, we are designing the screens. And so I'm telling it to simulate an iPhone device so that we can see what it would look like on mobile in this case. Telling it to use Tailwind for the styling. I don't want scroll bars rendered because this, again, is meant to be like a simulated phone, but we're doing it in a browser. We're passing in that style design that we made. That style guide is getting passed in. We're passing in our app context. So again, it's always thinking about what we're building for and what are those key philosophical principles. And then we get down to this last piece, which is the actual task. And so what's happening here is that we are telling it that it needs to go and it needs to build out all of these screens to spec. And so what we're going to do is we are going to copy all of this. Again, this is just for the first feature in this case. And now we're going to pop into our Antigravity IDE in this case with Gemini 3 Pro. And all we're going to do is we're going to paste in that entire prompt and we are going to hit send. And so what this is going to do is it's going to go through, it's going to extract out the design system, and it is going to go and create those screens for us. And so all you're going to do is go feature by feature, pasting that same prompt in. We don't want to overload it by passing all of the features at once. We want to be conscious of the amount of context we're passing. And so this is the feature 1, the dynamic capture, which again is meant to be very Spartan like this, which is why it looks like that. We get our actual like reflection view. So what does the timeline of all of the notes that users are taking actually look like? We have nice animations and interactivity between these different pieces. We can see what it looks like when the system is actually generating one of these reflections and what that loading state kind of looks like. We can see what it looks like when we're in reading mode. So we're actually inside of one of these and we want to look at it. Maybe we want to look at what one of these raw notes that this reflection is being generated from actually looks like. So this is kind of like a citation. We have our export screen, what it's going to look like if we want to actually click this button and export this thing. We have our nice settings screens and what they're going to look like in passive states and active states when we're requesting permissions. And these are all of the things, if we look back into our Gemini instance, that we were asking it for. So the main input interface, all of the different states, and it stayed true to exactly what we asked it to do. So there you have it, guys. 4 steps to getting started with building UIs that actually look kind of nice. Now, this system can be extended to your heart's content. Again, I have more in-depth training in the free group where we go through how to really build out the core UX of some of these things so that we can get really more detailed designs that actually match how we want the app to function. So go check that out if you want to dive deeper into this exact process. But just remember, people do not buy features. They buy the outcome that the app affords them. And the UX and the UI is how the app does it. So do not leave that to an afterthought. So now that you have a concrete system for building UIs that rock, go out there and build something with it. And once you have, join the free group below and share it. We have over 12,000 people in there that are using AI to code projects, and they love to share them with each other, give feedback, get initial users. It's really a great place to be if you are trying to build. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe, and that's it. I'll see you in the next one.